What if life isn't something you need to control, win, or figure out? What if life is just a game? A game where most people are so focused on scoring points, money, status, achievements, that they forget to actually play. You weren't born to meet expectations. You weren't born to chase someone else's definition of success. Somewhere along the way, you began believing that life is a test, that you must prove yourself, earn your worth, and avoid mistakes at all costs. But here's the twist. The moment you stop treating life as a battlefield and start treating it as a game, you win. Because the real power isn't in controlling the game, it's in how you choose to play. If you've ever felt like you're stuck following rules you never agreed to, listen closely. We're about to hack the system. Life is just a game. Here's how to hack it.
In life, most people enter the game without realizing they're playing. They start collecting titles instead. Student, professional, parent, achiever, winner, failure. These labels become armor, and eventually a cage. But here's the truth. A role is just a costume your character wears inside the game. It helps you navigate certain stages, but it is not who you are. From the moment we are children, we're trained to take the game seriously. We're rewarded when we follow the rules and punished when we question them. Do it right or don't do it at all. Be responsible. Be realistic. Slowly, we forget how to play. You start saying things like, I am my job. I am my achievements. I am my mistakes. But you are none of these. You are the player, not the character. A character can fail, break, fall, start again. A player can learn, adapt, and change the entire direction of the game. When something goes wrong, instead of saying, I failed, try this. Something in the game didn't work. What's the next move? A player experiments. A player explores. A player doesn't fear trying something new because there's no identity to lose, only experience to gain. And that's the first hack of the game. Detach, observe, play. You are not the mask you wear. You are the one who chooses it. There is a moment in life when the game suddenly stops feeling like a game. It becomes heavy, urgent, loaded with pressure, deadlines, expectations, and invisible rules. You start to believe that everything you do must serve a purpose. You stop moving freely, stop experimenting. Your decisions become calculated, not curious. Your every step is guided not by excitement, but by the fear of messing up. And that is when the trap closes. The name of this trap is seriousness. Most people don't even realize when it happens. It starts early. As a child, you play without a reason. You try things just because you feel like it. You build a sandcastle not to prove anything, but because the sand feels good in your hands. You draw simply because the colors look beautiful, not because someone will rate your drawing. In childhood, curiosity leads and logic follows. But at some point, the world flips the order. Logic becomes the master, curiosity the servant. Adults begin telling you that life is not a playground. They say there are things that matter and things that don't. Winning matters. Doing it right matters. Being efficient matters. But joy, play, wonder? These things are dismissed as distractions. They tell you to be serious, as if seriousness were the only valid state of mind for a functioning human being. And so, you learn to narrow your attention. You learn to measure your worth by performance, not presence. You judge yourself not by how alive you feel, but by how productive you are. Bit by bit, you trade spontaneity for control.
You stop doing things without a clear purpose. If something doesn't contribute to a measurable goal, you avoid it. The idea of trying something new just for the sake of experience becomes childish. And here is the irony. The more serious you become, the more life slips away from you. Seriousness convinces you that life is a linear process that must be followed step by step. Choose a path, commit to it, stick to it no matter what. It praises certainty and punishes doubt. It tells you that stopping, rethinking, changing direction, or questioning the rules means failure. But the truth is that seriousness isn't strength. Seriousness is fear, dressed as discipline. Fear of uncertainty, fear of embarrassment, fear of something going differently than you plan. The moment you start treating life as something to be mastered instead of experienced, you lose the freedom to be surprised. People wear seriousness like armor. They believe that if they just keep everything under control, their plans, their goals, their identity, life will reward them. But control is a fragile illusion. The world is unpredictable by design. Life is dynamic, fluid, constantly shifting. When you try to force life into a fixed structure, you don't gain stability, you gain tension. You become rigid in a world that demands flexibility, and rigidity breaks under pressure. Think of water. It flows, adapts, moves toward the lowest point without resistance. It doesn't strain, doesn't force, it simply follows its nature. Seriousness makes you the opposite of water. It makes you stiff, afraid to bend, and anything that cannot bend eventually snaps. When you take yourself too seriously, you begin to fear mistakes more than stagnation. You avoid risks. You avoid trying something new because someone might judge you, because it might fail, because you might feel vulnerable. But avoiding risks only creates a slow, invisible cage. The bars are made of what-ifs. What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if someone thinks I'm ridiculous? This is how seriousness kills creativity. You stop playing the game to win. Instead, you play not to lose. The world pushes you further into seriousness with rewards. If you sacrifice joy for productivity, you get approval. If you overwork yourself, you're praised as responsible. If you suppress your emotions, you're praised as tough. The system rewards seriousness because serious people follow the rules. Serious people don't question the structure. They don't ask, why is this the rule? They only ask, how do I follow it better? Serious people stay inside the game board instead of exploring what's beyond it. But something strange happens when you loosen your grip. When you allow yourself to take the game less seriously, a new space opens. You begin to notice opportunities that were invisible while you were tense. You begin to see choices where before you only saw obligations. You stop asking, what if it goes wrong, and start asking, what could go right? This shift in perspective doesn't come from forcing confidence. It comes from releasing seriousness. The most interesting people, the ones who create, innovate, inspire, are rarely serious. They're deeply engaged, yes, but not serious. There is a difference. Engagement is full presence. Seriousness is fear of loss. Engagement comes from curiosity. Seriousness comes from anxiety. Curiosity says, let's try. Anxiety says, don't mess it up. Curiosity opens, seriousness closes. When you remove seriousness, failure loses its meaning. When failing is just part of exploring, you stop attaching it to your identity. It becomes just another move in the game. Something didn't work? Interesting. Let's try again. Seriousness says, I failed. Playfulness says, that move didn't work. Good to know. And suddenly, the game continues. Playfulness is not irresponsibility. Playfulness is freedom to act without fear. When you stop fighting life, life becomes lighter. When you stop holding your identity so tightly, you can change. When you stop forcing everything to have meaning, meaning appears naturally. Imagine walking through life with the same attitude as a child exploring a new playground, not thinking about where the slide will take you, not planning the exact number of steps on the ladder, just following curiosity. That is presence. That is aliveness. Most people think seriousness is what keeps their life together, but seriousness is what keeps their life small. When you are serious, you follow only the roads that feel safe. When you're playful, you build your own roads. You are not rewarded for taking life seriously. You are rewarded for being awake to it. There comes a moment when you realize that seriousness has stolen something from you, the ability to enjoy the present moment for its own sake. When you drop seriousness, you give yourself permission to show up imperfectly. You give yourself permission to be human. Life becomes a game again when you realize you don't have to earn the right to play. You don't have to solve your way into joy. You can simply choose joy and let life unfold. Stop gripping the steering wheel so tightly. Trust the road. Let yourself laugh at the absurdity of existence. Let yourself be surprised by your own spontaneity. Let yourself explore paths without knowing where they lead. The game opens when you relax. At some point in the game, you realize something unsettling. You've spent more time chasing outcomes than actually living. You were taught that life is a sequence of goals. You achieve one, then immediately replace it with another. Study hard to get into a good school. Work hard to get a good job. Earn money to finally feel secure. Build a future so you can someday relax. Everything is always later. The promise of satisfaction is always somewhere ahead, just out of reach. The moment you get close to it, it moves, like a hologram that looks real until you try to touch it. This is the structure of the game that keeps many players trapped. Live for the result, not for the moment. The greatest illusion is that happiness is a destination, something you reach once you've done enough, achieved enough, become enough. But there is no finish line in this game. Only constant motion. When you live for results, you live in a mental future that never arrives. When the future becomes the only place where happiness is allowed, the present becomes an obstacle, something to endure, manage, survive. You stop experiencing life and start managing life. You trade aliveness for efficiency. You don't notice it happening until one morning you wake up and realize you've been postponing your life for later. Later becomes a habit. Later becomes a lifestyle. Later becomes a lifetime. There is another way to play. Instead of asking, "What will this lead to?" you ask, "How do I feel while I'm doing it?" Instead of forcing life to follow a path, you follow the state you want to embody, not the goal, the state. This is the hack. Results are the side effect of the state you operate from, not the other way around. When you live for results, you're constantly in tension. You are striving, you are pushing, you're calculating. You're acting from a mindset of not having enough yet, not enough progress, not enough talent, not enough certainty. But the state you operate from determines the quality of your decisions. A state of lack leads to actions rooted in fear. A state of abundance leads to actions rooted in expression. A state of anxiety makes you cling to the safest path. A state of curiosity lets you explore. When your internal world is tense, the game feels heavy. When your internal world is open, the game becomes fluid. Living from the state, not for the result, means that the process itself becomes meaningful. You're not running to finish the journey. You're walking to feel the ground under your feet. You're not creating to impress anyone. You're creating because something inside you wants to be expressed. When you stop obsessing over the outcome, you start experiencing the moment. Presence replaces pressure. The mind will resist this shift. It will say, if I stop focusing on results, nothing will happen. But that is not true. When you stop chasing, you stop creating resistance. Flow begins when force ends. When your actions come from a state of alignment instead of demand, you naturally choose what feels alive. And what feels alive is what grows. Look at any time in your life when you felt deeply fulfilled. Maybe you were painting, maybe you were learning something new. Maybe you were hiking, singing, writing, holding someone you love. In those moments, you weren't thinking about outcomes, you were immersed. Time disappeared, self-consciousness disappeared. Only the experience remained. That is the state of flow. That is where life actually happens, not in the measuring, but in the experiencing. The strange thing is that when you live from that state, results come easier. Opportunities show up, people show up, insights appear. The game starts cooperating with you. It feels almost magical, but it isn't magic. It's alignment. When you're fully present, free from tension and from the fear of being seen, you operate at your highest level of intelligence. You see connections you missed before. You sense direction instead of forcing certainty. You become receptive to life instead of defensive against it. Living from the state instead of for the result requires letting go of control. Not control over your actions, control over outcomes. And that terrifies the ego. The ego wants guarantees. It wants to know that if you put in the effort, you will get something in return. But life doesn't function on transactional logic. This is not a vending machine. You don't insert hard work and receive meaning. Meaning arises from engagement, not achievement. When you stop negotiating with life, life starts revealing itself. Think of a musician who plays only to reach the final note. The song would lose its purpose. The point of music is not the ending. The point is the unfolding, the movement, the exploration, the emotion. Life is the same. If you rush to the end, you miss the beauty of the middle. You miss the experience that gives the ending its value. Many people want to change their life circumstances, but few are willing to change their internal state. They want peace, but they operate from fear. They want freedom, but they operate from control. They want joy, but they operate from seriousness. The external world reflects the internal state. If you feel trapped internally, no achievement will free you. If you feel abundant internally, no loss will destroy you. When you decide to live from the state, not for the result, something profound happens. You no longer postpone your life. You don't wait for permission, you don't wait for certainty, you don't wait for the right moment. You start living now. You start playing now. You start expressing now. And the game begins to reveal new paths. You stop asking, where should I go? And start asking, who am I becoming as I move? The destination becomes less important than the version of you that walks the path. You realize that fulfillment is not what happens when you reach the end. Fulfillment is what happens when you allow yourself to be fully present in the middle. Life responds not to what you want, but to the state from which you ask. If you ask from fear, you get more fear. If you ask from openness, you get possibility. If you ask from presence, you get clarity. Hacking the game isn't about tricking the system. It's about remembering how the system actually works. The result is never the reward. The state is the reward. And when you embody the state of the person you want to become, you stop chasing outcomes. They begin to emerge naturally. You don't force the game. You flow with it. Life is not waiting for you to earn your right to enjoy it. You were allowed to play from the very beginning.